Good morning, Oikos. How are y'all today? Did y'all enjoy that coolness this morning? I know I did. Yeah, it feels great outside. So we're in the Gospel of John today, and before we get started, I wanted to say that I went on a conference trip this weekend to Austin with the staff, and we did all make it back alive. So. But we learned a lot about each other, whether it's good or bad. But we're in the Gospel of John, and so we're gonna go over a story that I'm sure y'all have heard before. And this is the story of the Samaritan woman, and the well that she meets Jesus at. And so this is a story that I'm sure some of y'all are familiar with. But we'll jump in with the reading here in John chapter 4, verse 1. So you can go ahead and turn there in your P Bibles or bring it up on your phone if you want, or look up at the screen. So Jesus knew the Pharisees had heard that he was baptizing and making more disciples than John. Though Jesus himself didn't baptize them, his disciples did. So he left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from a long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. So the significance of this story starts with a rabbi, Jesus, coming and sitting at a well and greeting a Samaritan woman. And now what makes this story a little abnormal is a Samaritan woman came out at noontime. And so this was just not normal, because the women in the morning would go together to get all the water they needed for the whole day. They would go as a group together to get the water. And so they would go early in the morning, and this was noontime, and she was coming by herself. So she was an outcast. For whatever reason, she was not going with the other women to fill her jar of water, to bring back to her family, to cook, to drink, to maybe feed some animals around the house, I don't know. She was there by herself. And even more so, what makes it significant was Samaria was very culturally different than Judea. So Samaria was the northern part of the kingdom, and then there was Jerusalem down south. And the cultural difference goes way back to the Babylonian captivity, where the Babylon Empire came in and sacked right after King David, came in and took over Jerusalem, the northern and southern kingdom. And so what happened is they took the Jews to Babylon, and then different groups came and took the north that would later become the Samaritans. And so they're culturally different. Both the language was a little different, the appearance was a little different, the income level was a little different. There was a lot of cultural differences between the Jews and the Samaritans. Sounds kind of familiar to today. There's a lot of cultural differences between Samaria and Judea. And so the Jews didn't like how the Samaritans worshiped. They had kind of forgotten their history, their heritage of following the Lord. They kind of wandered it a little different way. So the Jews looked at the Samaritans and said, "You are less than us." So the us versus them mentality was very much a part of the culture at the time. And so for Jesus to be a man, a single man, a rabbi, a teacher, a religious leader, to come and sit at noon because he's tired to talk to a Samaritan woman was just very, very different and very abnormal for that time. An outcast, and then she's an outcast of the outcast. So Jesus to come and sit there was very abnormal. This is also part of the reason why Jesus talks about Samaria in a lot of his parables, because there's that cultural difference that he is addressing immediately. So Jesus was there sitting, waiting for an outcast of an outcast, sitting on the well. And I don't know about you, but when I'm tired, I don't want to sit at noontime out in front of the sun. So I think Jesus was very intentional about addressing and talking to this woman. And rightfully so. This is her response in John 4, verse 9 and 10. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Jesus replied, "If you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." So how does Jesus surprise you? I asked Rachel this question yesterday when I was typing my notes over. I was like, "Rachel, how does Jesus surprise you?" Are you surprised when Jesus invites you into his life? What gift does God have for you that you can't see? What I like about her response, whether this is good or bad, what I like about it, because I think it fits right into my heart, was she was asking questions about who she was to Jesus. And she was asking him, "Why me? Out of all the people you could have talked to, you're the last person I would have expected to be here was a rabbi, Jewish man. So why are you asking me these questions? I'm just a Samaritan woman that has no friends that is coming out to get water. I was hoping I could kind of avoid some confrontation today. So why are you asking me for a drink, Jesus?" She was asking questions about her identity and herself. Because I'm sure she was going out there because she was an outcast, and I'm sure she was telling herself, and she felt herself that she was worthless and dead. That I have nothing to offer anyone. So I'm going to come out here and hopefully just avoid talking to anybody and just go about my business. Does that sound familiar? So she thinks she's worthless and dead because that's the response she's been given her entire life. So Jesus is saying, "I am the living water. So for whatever reasons that's bringing you out here at noon by yourself, whatever reasons that you're here by yourself, you don't need to drink that gross water anymore." I mean, it's a well water. Jacob's well was used to feed animals for hundreds of years. Jesus is saying you don't need to go back to those things that have gotten you here in the first place. Jesus is saying that he is the one worth drinking. And her response is, "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said, "and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" And in her response to that, is she saying she's too far gone? That her sin runs too deep for this living water that Jesus is offering. Too far gone. I need, you don't even have the tools to get me water from this well, so how do you have the tools to give me living water? She thinks that she is too far gone to have this conversation with Jesus. And I think by this time, she's kind of curious as who is this man? Maybe this is the Lord. But she's kind of curious about why this guy is asking her these questions. And she compares him then to Jacob. Because I think that she's going to this well and making that connection because she's hoping, there's a little bit of hope that maybe Jacob and his ancestors would be represented here in this well. And so she compares and says, I need at least Jacob to get me out of this mess that I put myself in. But even more, I'm not even sure if that'll work. I need something greater to get me out of this mess. Because I don't have the tools, and I'm not sure if you have the tools, Jesus, to get me out. Are you too far gone to be saved? Are you looking for the right tool to bring you out of the messes that you've created? And Jesus replied in verse 13, Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Please, sir, the woman said, give me this water. Then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. So Jesus then addresses her spiritual need right up front. You don't need this, you need this. You don't need the life you had before, you need me. The reasons that have brought you to this well in the first place, you don't need that anymore. Don't drink of that. You need me. Jesus is offering a new life for her. But in order to do that, the old life had to be gone. So, what needs to die in your life? What needs to be put to death in your life so that new can grow? What needs to die in your life? What are you choosing to keep alive instead of putting it to death? So, my parents are here, so they'll like this story. Growing up, my first car I ever owned was a 1995 Chevy Corvette. And and I had this car, and I loved it. I loved it. It was probably an idol, but I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and I enjoyed it so much. But soon after buying it, we started having problems with it, like any car. And so we started having problems with this car, and we kept putting money into it, hoping to fix it, hoping to maybe make it last another 6 months, year. And then thing after thing after thing after thing happened. And I'm sure y'all maybe have some experience with some cars. But then it got to a point where you're like, well, do I keep the car alive? Or do I just get into something else? And so we were at that point where it's the car's 20 years old. Do we keep putting it into this, or do you kind of maybe go a different direction, get a new car, trade it in, sell it, whatever, to purchase something else? And reluctantly, my parents decided to sell the car about a year ago. It had been sitting for 4 years unused. So what needs to die in your life? Is it anger to a spouse? Is it anger towards God? Is there things that have settled in your heart? Maybe some resistance, maybe some hardness that keeps you from enjoying the company of other people? Is there animosity towards somebody in your family? Is there tension between somebody in your family? Is there thoughts of getting divorced? Are there thoughts of running away? Are there thoughts of choosing a new life? What needs to die in your life? What needs to die in your life so that Jesus can be there? So what Jesus was doing in this story was bringing new life where there wasn't any. So for this woman, she had nothing. Her friends weren't there. She was coming out at noontime to get water for the day by herself. She was outcasted. Jesus was bringing new life to her where she couldn't see any, and offering her a new way, a new life, where she didn't have to turn back to that old one anymore. Quit going to places in your life that you know the outcome will be death. It's okay to let things in your life die. It's okay to let hate die. It's okay to let part of your hard heart die. It's okay for you to offer your whole life to die in front of Jesus, because he says, I give you living water. One thing that I learned at this conference that we went to this weekend was a guy was speaking about baptism, and he made this great connection that the only difference between baptism and drowning is that with baptism you have a hope that you will come back up again. And with drowning, you lose that hope. And so what's beautiful about our faith and what's beautiful about our denomination, what's beautiful about Jesus, is he offers to help us put those things to death, and then he rises up with us. That we have a God that actually experienced death himself and was raised back up again, so that we may have everlasting life, so that we may have that newness of life. Verse 16 goes on and says, "Go and get your husband," Jesus told her. And she replied, "I don't have a husband." Jesus said, "You're right, you don't have a husband, for you've had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth." "Sir," the woman said, "you must be a prophet." Jesus moves us from death into life. Of course, Jesus knew this about this woman before she even goes and talks to Jesus. I mean, he knows everything about her. But he gives the opportunity for her to be upfront and honest with Jesus about where she is in life. Let's be honest. Let's be honest about why you're coming out to this well at 12. Why are you coming out to this well by yourself instead of going with all the women like the culture does? So let's be honest. Let's talk about the things that have brought you here in the first place. So if I'm going to be honest, I should have sold my Corvette a long, long time ago. But I decided to keep that going and throw money into it. It's just like throwing the money away. So how are you being honest with the Lord? I've never been married. And so I can't imagine the heartbreak and just the pain and the sorrow that comes from having 5 different marriages. Now, we don't know if the previous marriages had ended in death, or if it had ended in divorce or adultery, whether she cheated or whether somebody cheated on her. We don't know why she had 5 previous marriages, but we do know that Jesus was still there to heal her. That pain that she felt through all of that outcast, being pushed away, probably because of her lifestyle, that Jesus was still showing up to heal her. And so the woman replies in verse 25, "I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus told her, "I am the Messiah." Jesus makes himself accessible to us in our lives. Jesus makes himself accessible in our lives. So whether we're coming out to draw water at noon, he'll be sitting waiting for us. Even when you don't think that you're worth waiting for, Jesus will wait for you and care for you and seek you out, even if you feel lost, even if you feel like things in your life can't die. He seeks you out and makes himself accessible to you. And so we don't have to rely on us being able to find him. He doesn't hide away from us, but he comes up and says straight to your face, "I am the Messiah. I give you hope. Put your hope in me. Put your hope in me as the Messiah. In order for new life to happen, you have to come to me. You can't fix things yourself. You can't fix things yourself. Come to me in order to have new life. And I think her response is very beautiful to this, and what she does after she realizes that, well, I just talked to the guy I've been hoping for, that I've been hearing things about. I've been hoping that he would come maybe wander into my village and reveal himself to me. The thing she was hoping for happens, and this is her response. The woman left her jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, "Come and see a man who told me everything I did. Could he possibly be the Messiah?" So the people came streaming from the village to see him. So are you excited for the new life that Jesus has for you? So what the village probably thought of this woman was, she's not worth it. I don't want to spend time with her. I mean, she's had 5 husbands for whatever reason. Again, an outcast, rejected. But then she comes running back to the people, the very people that pushed her away, and says, "The Messiah is here. Come listen to him. For he's told me all the stuff that you've already seen. He's told me all of the bad stories. He knows about all that stuff. He's not trying to shy away from it. He's not trying to push me away. But I'm going to tell you guys that what he's doing, and I want you to come experience the life transformation that he's done for me. And I want the same for you guys too." Are you excited when Jesus transforms you? Are you excited when you see transformation happen in the lives of loved ones or those around you, where you can look in and see the Messiah coming and providing hope in a place that's not hopeful? I know I'm excited sometimes. I mean, the Aggies are 5-0. What else could I hope for? Oh. So are you excited for the new life that Jesus has for you? Do you believe that through baptism, he's killed those things in your heart and is inviting you to come rise with him again? So we'll close with this hope, this excitement, and this truth that Jesus has given us. For we died and were buried with Christ by baptism. And just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glorious power of the Father, now we also may live in new life. For now we may also live a new life. The Lord is coming to us today through the celebration as a church family. He's coming to us today to invite us into that hope of that resurrection. And that even though there might be areas in your life that need to die, and you don't know where to start to do that, you can start by telling yourself that he's coming to me today. And so he will provide the life where there can't be any life. That he'll provide hope where there can't be hope. He'll provide truth where there can't be truth. So if you have any weeds in your heart that are growing, that need to be put to death, invite the Lord to do that. There's weeds in your heart that are growing that you don't know how to get rid of, and they keep growing back and back and back. Invite the Lord to put it to death. Because Jesus doesn't just do that for us. He doesn't just kill parts of our heart, but he provides new life. And new life that is living water, that when we drink it, it's enough to keep us alive. When we touch it, it's enough to save us. So you don't have to go back to the dirty well water where animals drink out of it. You don't have to go back to that. But the Lord is providing a new way, a new life in your heart. So let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for today and this time to celebrate and gather. We just ask for new life in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, that we can put to death things in our heart that are not of you, and that we can have our hearts changed from a heart of stone into a heart of flesh. And so we want to invite you into our lives where we've been resistant to let you in. We want to just experience what living water is like. And so put to death anything in our hearts that is not of you and raise us again, Lord. In the hope of the resurrection, we know that this is true. And so we ask for a new life right now. We ask for that new life for the rest of our lives, Lord. And also we ask God in your name. Amen. So we're going